Good morning, everybody. It's Saturday, October 5th. I'm sitting in the tree stand again. It's been kind of an interesting morning already. When I was getting ready to leave the house, I dropped my crossbow right onto the scope. I'm really hoping it didn't jack the sighting in. I've got a test arrow that I'm going to pull out here in just a little bit to make sure. I know what I'm supposed to be zeroed at. I'm sighted in at 25 yards, 38 yards, and 50 yards with 3 different lines inside the scope. I got out here, and I was out here about a half an hour before shooting time opened up. The moon has just passed directly underneath about 20 minutes ago. The wind is about, I'm going to say 5 to 10 miles an hour off of my right shoulder. So far, the only activity has been the squirrel, but I'm really hoping that with the moon passing underneath, there might be enough activity to come in that I can get a shot. So, stick with us. Now that test arrow that I just talked about is off my shoulder right there. You can see it. The wind's been picking up just a little bit over the last 10 minutes, 15 minutes, I guess. It's a little more breezy than it was when I first got here. Now I carried in some corn, so I was pretty heavily loaded when I came in today with my backpack and my crossbow and the bag of corn to replenish what had been taken over the last week. That was kind of crazy. You didn't see it, but I just had a bird cross underneath me at about 5 feet. That was nuts. It's one of the reasons why I love being out here so much, because you see things that you would just not see any other way. The bird never even knew I was here. Now I want to share with you a couple of tips while I've got the chance. I'm still kind of watching the area as you would expect to see if there's any activity in the distance. That's one of the things that I want to point out. When you're in a blind or you're in a tree stand, one of the first things that you need to do is really take stock of what's immediately around you. Really get a feel for whether or not there are deer or other animals immediately around you. Push your view out to as far as you can see, and then from that point on, study meticulously everything out on the fringe of where you can see. Now, one of the things, too, that's really important is my experience has been, now this is not 100% true, but my experience generally has been that does will travel the direction of the wind, meaning if the wind is blowing from west to east, they will usually travel from west to east. However, when the bucks break up out of their bachelor groups, they will generally, and the closer we get to the rut, they will almost always travel with the wind in their face. So when you're picking a tree and where to position in that tree, or when you're picking a blind location, you need to be mindful of that directional travel pattern. It's pretty consistent. So right now, my hope today is to get a really good shot at a big doe. Now, if a big buck walks in, I'm probably going to consider taking the shot, obviously. But I really want to give the bucks time to get into their fall travel patterns and see what's coming through. Very, very often during the early season, you don't see very often in the early season, you don't see the majority of the bucks that are going to come through the property that you're on later in the season, because they extend their fall ranges. That's something to keep in mind. So, if you're out there and it's early in the season, before you take a buck, make sure that you really want to take that buck, because you might very well be missing some opportunities that you're going to get later on in the season. And if you've already filled your tags, you're up a creek if you want to do it legally. And I do. And I encourage you to too. So a quick shout at those few people out there, and they're there, who don't hunt legally, who don't tag deer, who shoot more than they should. You're messing it up for all of us who want to do it legally. So get out of that racket. It's not a good place to be. My dad taught me and my brothers years ago, if we're going to do this, we need to do it the right way. So, good morning again. This is Raw to Rageous. So it's closing in on 8:30. The wind is almost non-existent. There's a very, very, very faint breeze that passes through occasionally. One of the things that I want to point out about that, very important that if you're going to move or shift or do anything like that, that you do it when the wind is moving the trees and the branches and the leaves around you. That's going to cover your move. Now, sometimes you can't avoid it. And if you can't, obviously that's understandable. But move as slowly and as quietly as you possibly can. Because when the wind is almost non-existent like this, just about every sound carries forward by an incredible distance. I don't know if you can hear that bird in the background, but that bird's a pretty good haul off from where I'm at right now. That'll give you an idea on just how well the sound carries when it's quiet like this. So I've been watching that ground squirrel for the last 45 minutes, running up and down that log into the corn and back. I'm guessing it's picking up corn and taking it back to its hole. But, oh, there's the sun. But regardless, it's been pretty cool. Folks, what an absolutely gorgeous fall morning. The sun you can see filtering through the trees. It came up at about 7:18 this morning. It's 9:15 right now, and the window, and what I call the window of the moon position being underneath the earth, is closing. So I'm going to go ahead and get down, because I'm going to spend more time sitting from this point forward for a while than I will actually seeing wildlife. Now the squirrels will be active for a little while longer. Once they fill up and take care of what they need to for the day, then they're going to go ahead and settle in. In fact, there's one right there. I don't know if you can see it right there on the ground. Yeah. Been watching squirrels all morning. Now there's one in here that I was telling a coworker of mine, at least last year, that was a jet black squirrel. And I watched it and I watched it and I watched it, and I thought, you know what, I'd really like to take that squirrel and have it mounted by a taxidermist that I know and put it on the wall because it's a rare and a unique and a really cool looking squirrel. Now, I haven't seen it so far this year, but I've only been out 3 times, so. But I'd really like to take that squirrel. I think it'd be really cool to put on the wall. So, one last thing that I want to mention to you today. When you're hunting in the morning, it's really important to keep the sunrise at your back. The deer, when they come in front of you, will catch sight of the sun, and it will obscure their vision of you and being able to identify you visually. So that's a really key point. So on that note, the window's closing on this position of the moon underneath the earth, and so I'm going to go ahead and get down because the next little while is not going to be very productive anyway. I want to tell you thank you for watching Raw to Rageous, and if you haven't done it yet, drop a like, drop a subscribe, pass this on to your friends, share it up, and on that, we'll see you next time.